Hello there, and welcome once again to my little arty corner of YouTube. My name's Angela Porter, and amongst other things, I'm an artist illustrator for colouring books. And that's what I'm perhaps best known for, but I do an awful lot of different kind of art, dabbling in hand lettering at the moment. But you're most welcome here, and I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who's subscribed, who's liked the videos, who's shared them, who's commented. Thank you so much. I no longer feel like I'm talking to myself, is what I want to say there, though that has its benefits. I've talked about me, my brain, and how it works in many previous videos, so we're not going to do that today. So what I've got here today is a piece of paper that is a little bit smaller than A5. I can't remember what size I cut it to. I know it's 14 centimetres this way, and it was probably about 19 centimetres this way. And it's a piece of marker paper, but from Daler Rowney, because I do like markers, and I particularly like marker paper for drawing on as well. From time to time, you might notice I switch up quite often, or swap around quite often, what papers I use, because I like the different feels of them. So some days I just think, oh, that's what I need to draw on. And today I thought I'd take a little break from mushrooms and other things. My brain's not working too well on things, and I've got a lot to do. But I thought I'd share with you an old tangle pattern that I haven't used for a long while, but that I particularly like. It's called Ansu, and it's by Lori Manoogian of CZT. And I found this on tanglepatterns.com whilst browsing for a short while this morning. And it's a lovely pattern that can be put together in lots of different ways. And a fragment as well, I guess. It can be used as a fragment. But it starts with, and I'll try to let my pen show so you can see what's happening. It's not always easy for me. But it starts with almost a teardrop shape. But you stop before you get up to the top. Then you aura around inside like so. And I've got enough space that I can go up again. But if you can only go part way round, that's fine. And you finish the end off with a darker blob like that. And that's basically it. That's Ansu. And of course there are loads of ways of putting it together. So I'm going to do some fairly quickly here. I'm going to put them together as if they are flowers. Now for this one, I was going to start going around this way, but then I realised that these long straight lines would be next to each other, and I actually wanted them to be like a repeating pattern of these Ansu. So, oh, that's a bit of a wonky one, but you'll forgive me. And then another one here. It doesn't matter if each of them are slightly imperfect or not identical. They'll always be slightly imperfect because they're being drawn by humans. And that's what makes them perfect in their own little way, the perfectly imperfect imperfections. So you can create a flower like this. And although these aren't joined here or in the middle, we could do if we wanted to. And I could join all of these lines up so they come from a single point, like so. And then to complete the petals, we could join them like this, where we just join this part of the line, this part of the line back to that central one. So we end up, oh, that was the wrong way, that way and that way. So we end up with things spiraling out. Ignore that little line, that's why I made a mistake. In fact, if I go back and repeat this mistake with all, oh, this line wasn't it, with all of them, we'll end up with the same pattern around. It's a bit messy, but you get the idea. In fact, I most probably could tidy this up a lot better. I just draw straight lines between them and leave it at that. And perhaps I'm just going to colour this area in black because I made a mess, knowing that at a later point I can come back with a white pen perhaps and put some patterns in there. It's a big area of black, but that's me making a mess of things. Let me just have a look what happens if I draw these. Back to back, as it were. Oh no, I've changed the shape on that one. You see, it's more leaf shaped rather than teardrop shaped. Now if I do one here, it's going to go, we're going to have one that's pointing in one direction and one in the other. So this leads me to another variation which involves stacking them, but I need to go, I want to start at the bottom if I do that, is to use them to create like a chain of leaves almost. So I am doing these as more or less mirror images, and I'm leaving this space in between, because this space in between is where I'm going to join a couple more. Leave a space in between though and join another one in. So I'm connecting them here to this, to the first stroke of each of these patterns, each of these Ansus. And again here. And they're naturally, with me, getting that little bit smaller each time I go up one, as if it's a fern or a frond of some kind. And then I think the very last one I'm going to draw so it finishes the top off like that. So we've got something here that does really look like a fern. I do want to do something to join these together, and I think the simplest way is to go like this. So it just completes off, you know, completes those spaces in between them. And that, I actually like that. It's a very stylized kind of design. Just have a quick look. So I join them quite close together here, but let's have a look if we have a bigger gap between them. And start the next one a little bit further away than we did. So we get this big channel in between them. And you can work on bringing those closer together, little by little. These are very rough and ready drawings from me today. Must be a rough and ready drawing kind of morning. Oh, and that one I connected quite a bit further down, you know, closer to the edge, which is fine. But this creates more of that stem in between. And I think what I'm going to do to join them is pop something that might look a bit like a berry in there, or a seed. A little circle just to join them there. And at the top, perhaps I'll get to the kind of join together and add those berries as well. I'm not so sure. I think I prefer this one, to be honest. I think so. And what about if we use the first stroke as a common connector? See what I mean? So I started with this stroke here, and then I used that line to connect, just to draw this one from. So rather than using this line to draw this way, to be the natural feeling for it, we'll go here. So alternating which lines we use back and forth. So a different way to get to that frondy shape, but this results in a more staggered arrangement of these Ansus, which is really quite lovely. I'm really not happy with this one, so I think what I'm going to do is aura inside and make a feature of it, perhaps. Perhaps fill that middle channel with perk or something else. We'll get another perk in there, but then I'm going to start just filling it in, perhaps with either lines or perhaps stripes. Or even, you could even pop little spirals in there if you've got a fine pen. I've got one to hand. But I quite like this one. Again, it's working out how do we join these in, so we've got areas that are, you can leave them like that, but I think of them as almost leaves, so I want to create them like this, where I can extend this line like that and join them together. And that makes me happy. I like that version, this one here, very much. Very much. But then we can also do other things, very simply. I've got my Zentangle kind of mind on. So I'm going to draw them in this kind of fashion again, where we have them growing side by side, but mirror images almost, like so. Perhaps I'll just pop one at the top. And instead of joining these together at the bottom, we could instead draw an outline around them, a border around them, or an aura, Zentangle terms. And that encloses all of it. Excuse me. Which is quite sweet as well. I quite like that. And try the one where they radiate out. And in this case, I am going to pop a little circle in the middle that they can start growing from. You could just have a point there, they could all just join back to the same place. But I quite like this. So that works as it is, which is lovely. But if we take just a little time, just to aura, and that works nicely as well. And if I use that starting place, the same on each one, I'm in trouble with the shape now. I get to the point where I'm drawing a shape and my hand wants to do something different, and my brain is trying to say, no, that's not the shape we started with. So I don't know which version you prefer. So these are just very rough and ready. They're for my sketchbook. Again, I'm just going to aura this. Just to enclose that space, is to give them that feeling of being a whole item rather than a collection of other items. This is how my mind works generally, is that it's a discrete space within which there is something. And of course we can aura as much as we like, and it could be fun. Perhaps put smaller ones growing out of these little spaces. But with this, I'm actually touching. I'll show you. So there's the first side, and then the next side comes down, and then we go around and up. Well, I made the around bit here attached to that outer line, outer border, so that it closes that space in, so they're a bit like a leaf, which is quite sweet as well. So we can have ones like that, which is lovely. And the other one I want to do with these, let me see if I can get this one a bit neater or tidier. I think this will be my last one possibly. Is I'm going to draw one side, I'm just going to draw one side, and what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to connect these shapes here so they close themselves off. Like so. And so we could do the other side or just leave it like that with the stem there. That's quite nice. I like that. Or I'm making the effort here to point them much more out. So I think with these I've been sort of trying to keep these shapes fairly vertical, whereas here I'm really bending them over quite a bit. Like so. And then let's do the same on the other side. We again bend them over like this and get them to touch. I think just one more just to finish that off there. Perhaps one at the top just to complete that. And if you need a frond like that to go in a particular direction, or you want to do a particular shape, draw the stem in first, because it is essentially a straight line, so we can follow them like this. So I'm still drawing the straight line, or the starting line, along the stem to judge how much space I need. But ultimately I really could just look and decide, well, this is where I want that shape to start. This is where I want it to start, and that's where it would fit in. And same here. Yeah, that works. Don't have to retrace or redraw over that line to work out the space where I want these to be. The bottom is open, so what I would do, I think, is just join the points downwards. Same here. And there we are, we've got a lovely leafiness there. So this is Ansu. And it's by Lori Manoogian. CZT. So lots of possibilities. Play around with it. I think there's going to be a lot more, but my head can't work at it. It would make a lovely border. You know, just one of these. If I draw with a pen here, finer pen, perhaps part of a, or in, you know, part of a border, then this could work really lovely. As a kind of, well, it's a spiral, but it's a more flattened spiral that looks more leaf shaped rather than the traditional very circular spiral. And here you just change the direction of them in a way that just works. Or, as an alternative, you could leave a box in the corner that you fill with something else. So that would work quite nicely as a border, I think. I need to take a bit more time and practice. I've not drawn it that way before. But I think that could work quite nicely. Quite nice. It's very Wenglish. You say, well, that works quite nice, doesn't it? Not nicely, but nice, just nice. So there we are, whole page, well, nearly a whole page of these. I did say that these are becoming particularly leaf shaped. So the original one is almost teardrop shaped, like so. But to change it into a leaf shape is quite easy. So instead of having a rounded bottom, we have a pointy one. Heart shaped, because I can. That actually would be quite interesting. We could have ones that are distinctly, well, a flat bottom, so it's more triangular, would work quite nicely. Trying to think, we've got quite, we could have quite narrow shapes as well, which would look lovely on a frond. You know, if you imagine, is it ash leaves? Ash? Not ash. You get some leaves on trees and plants that have the main stem, but then you have other little stems coming off, which is where the leaves are opposite one another, and they tend to be a bit narrower, or they can be. So those would work quite nicely. And of course you can make them as wide as you like as well. And the wider you make them, the more lines inside you can get. All based on the same principles. So if I take that size, so it's about from there to there, and do a skinny mini, like so, and then perhaps one that is just the normal width, a bit shorter, but the difference is there, so all fun. And I'm sure there are other shapes that we could play with, but brain not functioning on that today. So lots and lots of things that can be played with. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. A very quick video. Well, I say that's where I'm going to leave it. Let me move that out of the way. I'm going to stand up, so if you hear creaks and groans, it's me. Early morning. And let me get a couple of markers out. Looking for pale greys. Is that? No, not that one. That one will work. That one. Got a couple of grey greens here because I just think the grey greens will work nicely. So these are Arteza markers simply because they are the ones that are closest to me and easiest to get. So I've got a GG08, which is the lightest grey green I've got in my set, and I've got a GG06, which is slightly darker. Slightly, yeah. For some reason, the lower the number, the darker the colour. And in my head, that seems a bit strange because I think the lower the number, the lighter. And I'm also going to get, I should have got this while I was up first, a colourless blender brush. It does help with blending, but it's more about bleaching. It depends how you use it. So if you want colours to blend easily, use the colourless blender first, and then that's the annoying thing about these caps, you can't post them. Post them means putting them on the end. So let's have a look here at some of these, at how we can. I am just going to add some colourless blender at the base of these, trying to avoid the ink I've put down or used. The lovely thing about marker paper is, or paper that's distinctly made for, oh, wrong end, I want the other end, is that it doesn't need as much of the ink to saturate the paper, and it stays wetter for longer. If wetter, well, yeah, wetter with alcohol, not wetter with water, than ordinary papers would do perhaps. So I'm going to add a little bit of the darker colour at the bottom. This is going to be fast and dirty, I'm warning you. It's one of those mornings where I'm very conscious I have a lot to do in a short space of time, but I still wanted to do this because once I've got the video done and uploading, I'm free to focus on some other stuff. So here I'm using the colours blender both to mix these colours and to give them some space to bleed out, as it were. And the other thing about alcohol markers is that they do dry back much lighter than when they are damp. So there's that one. Okay, where's my lightest one? There's the lighter one. See, I can't tell. You can't tell from these ends which is the lighter, which is the darker. And the caps, as cute as they are, make it really awkward to see. You can look on the side, but it doesn't give you any indication of how dark or how light it is. I like Arteza markers, but there's some things that are a bit irritating. Okay, let's have a look at another one. This one, I'm going to put the shadow here, and here a bit, and here, and just along there, and perhaps a bit there, where these shapes are. At the bottom, I'll take the darker one. If only they made the barrels of the pens. It doesn't have to be identical, but just to indicate the sort of like the lightness or darkness of the shade of the colour within. You know? Yes, that would add to the cost of the product, because Arteza is sort of like marketed as you know, artist quality materials, but on a budget. So good quality, but on a budget. Just going to add some there as well at the tip. Just give a bit there and use the colourless marker just to blend that out. That strange colour there is me picking up some of the pigment ink. There is a tiny bit of the edge here showing when you put them on their sides, but it's still annoying. So I'm just going to add some, yeah, just a little bit at the bottom of these, perhaps. In some cases I've got more than one area that's at the base, sort of like a bottom pointy bit, and with that one I'm just going to use the alcohol blender just to spread that out a bit. You can see how much this one has dried back. It's not perfect. I'm not perfect today. I'm not perfect any day. Have a look at this border here, because this one has distinct areas where we can add shadow and highlight. So there's some shadow going in. I'll do the same on this side. Add some shadow here, but I'm going to use the colourless blender to let this creep out a bit or fade it out towards the end, because it is, even though it's the lightest green grey, it's still quite dark. Okay, so I'm going to pop my shadow underneath here and underneath there, so that'll work there. Oops. Let's try and pick up the colours blender before I turn it all a really dark grey green. And again, I'm going to use the colours blender just to give it the option either to spread out or just to blend out a little bit. And then I'm going to use the darker colour, and I'm just going to fill all of this in under here with dark colour, like so. I'm going to add a little bit, I will do that there. Some ways I wish I picked up 3 colours, because I'd been able to perhaps get some more shading in. But it is what it is now. So there, we've got that. And if I just go to this area here, just fill this in with the darkest green grey. Give it a dark shadow there. And then we're going to have, this area is going to be, so I'm just going to add some there. Just blend those out while they're still damp. This is the thing with alcohol markers, is that you do have to work while they're damp. They will re-moisten, but they never blend as well once they've dried. That's my experience. So there's that. So that would work quite nicely. I think I'd want to do something about the corner there. I haven't worked that through very well in my brain. Okay, let's have a look. At one of these branches, perhaps, I think I'll do this one, because there's distinct areas here where we can. So I am adding the lightest grey here first, and I'm flicking it out so we get a feathered edge. And I'm leaving the ends with less colour in than the beginning of the stroke. So I should be able to blend that out a bit easier. And then I can just bring in a hint of the darker grey green right at the base where and where they are overlapping perhaps a little bit, just to add that variation in shadow. So that's where the stems meet. What about the rest of these little shapes? Well, I'll go back and do that, because I am going to add the colourless blender here. Now, I'm not going to say I'm an expert at alcohol markers, I'm not, but I know how I get them to work for me, and I think that is the secret. You know, it's my personal perspective. I think that is my secret, or that is what I think the secret is to working with any medium, is experiment, play, and work out how it works for you. What somebody likes or has learnt for themselves and it works for them is one thing, but I think you can figure out how it works for you, and perhaps use other people's sort of techniques as a starting place. And it does depend on what kind of effect you want. I'm often about contrast and very simple things. I'm whimsical, not realistic in the addition of colour. I struggle with colour palettes, so I either go riotous or I stay monochrome. Riotous is often reserved for things like doodly characters and so on, you know, fun and, you know, hijinks and what have you. And, you know, that's me. And then the monochrome is, you know, a very limited colour palette I reserve for things that I need to perhaps be a bit more coherent in the colours, or, oh gosh, I put the wrong colour down there. This is the dark one. Not a problem, because I can go back and just blend this out now. And yes, I am working over the dark colour. I'm not just doing one pass with this lighter colour grey. I am doing multiple passes. Here I'm going to put some shadow on the outside of these leaves. And leaving the rest as a bit of a highlight. I'll check on that in a moment once I've added some colourless blender, because that's the next step, just to blend the edges out so I don't have such a harsh line. That's the other thing with alcohol markers, and in tiny areas it's difficult to get a really good blend because you can't use so many colours or layers, well, no colours really. But it's sort of like living with the effects you get, or working out how to use them to your advantage, I suppose, would be a better way of saying it. Right, okay, that's the lighter one, yeah. So I just want to pop a tiny bit of darkness under this line, as it were. I've got any others, just to add a hint of shadow on this other side of that line as well. And just that little hint of shadow, of highlights, of colour, just brings these to life, I think. Starts to give structure. And there's no colour here, it's just a grey. But I can, if I wanted to, glaze over the top with a colour. Let me have a look. You can hear, I don't know if you can hear me creaking and groaning, let alone my chair. What colour's that? Oh, I don't like the olive green in this. Let's go for what's this one? Oh god, that's garish. It might not be that bad. This one is a yellow green. It's called it's YG05. It's called pea green. I think if peas are this colour, there's something wrong with them. Okay, so if I take one of these, which one? We take this, and then I can colour just about all of this one in with this. So after I bought sets of Arteza pens, I realised they were just bringing out brush pens. I just thought, oh no, this is the brush pen is that I prefer. The bullets are great, mind you, because you can get really thin colours. Perhaps too dark a colour. The idea is that you can glaze over the top with colour and the shadows underneath will show through. So let me get a different colour. Let's go for a pink, pale pink. There's such a thing as a pale pink alcohol marker. Everything's garish with them. Oh, ballerina pink. It's an RP09. suppose that's a red purple colour, which won't sit well with the grey, with the green, but you can see that the shadow underneath does show through. So you can glaze over the top once you've put the colours in you want. You can still add different colours of pink to add to that effect, or use the colourless blender to blend back. The other thing about using marker paper is that you are less likely to get a streaky colouring, because they're designed that the alcohol, the marker ink, stays wet for longer, that it's easy to blend. But you can also glaze over the pink. This is what I'm doing, or any other colour. So I'm adding more pink on the top, and it deepens the colour of the pink. If you do this while the alcohol ink is damp, the edges should blend into the lighter pink. It might be noticeable now while it's wet, but when it dries it'll be a bit better. But you can see, so you can glaze over the top with colour. And this is something, I think I showed this many videos ago, where I used graphite pencils to add shadow to a drawing and then used watercolours on the top, and it creates almost like a metallic feel to it. And this is kind of heading that way, though it's not as extreme as I perhaps would like. But alcohol markers, I'm not an expert, not by a long shot, but I just thought I'd show you, mainly because I wanted to put some shadow in, to show you how these things really do come alive and become three-dimensional with colour. The line drawings are great, but it's when you add that colour, or even just shading to it, suddenly there's depth and there's dimension, there's volume to it. And that's where I'm going to leave you for today. So thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm really going to write a note here. Angela, what were you thinking? The answer is I wasn't really. I was thinking, oh, what if? It's a what if moment rather than a proper thought moment. But there'll be notes here, Angela, don't do this again. Not in a video. But we all do things and realise that perhaps we shouldn't have done them. And it's about learning and trying not to do that again. Yeah, it's that trying not to do it again that I struggle with. Because, yeah, I always hope that it's going to be a different outcome, and it never is. But anyway, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I hope to see you here again soon. Take care and find time to be creative. Bye-bye. Bye for now. Bye.